Hi there. You asked the question, what's it like to live in Gig Harbor? And we're here to tell you.
I'm the most recent resident. We have some fromers here. 5 years ago, my family moved here to Gig Harbor because we know it's a beautiful place to be, great place for families. Little did I know the history that is very much ingrained in this community, and it's a huge part of the people that live here and the traditions that go on in this community.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk to you guys a little bit about that history that's deeply ingrained here in Gig Harbor. This is part one, the FINHOLM district.
All right. Our office, Hawkins Poe, sits right in one of the historic buildings in the FINHOLM district.
This building actually used to be a dime store, and John FINHOLM lived upstairs.
Yep.
So let's head across the street to the FINHOLM Market to meet some members of this founding family.
And here we are at the FINHOLM Market with just a group of guys that decides to meet every week for coffee. But these are some important guys in Gig Harbor, so I wanted to introduce them to you. Starting with you, sir.
Mike Paul, Sr.
Roger Bird.
I'm Jack FINHOLM.
I'm Monty Hester. I'm married to Teddy, previously FINHOLM, who was the daughter of John and Francis, who originally owned the store. I'm Jim Heller, and my wife was a FINHOLM.
There you go. So as you can see, all of these gentlemen, with the exception of Jack, are married to FINHOLMs. Jack is Mr. Jack FINHOLM. So let's start off. We have a couple questions. Since we're sitting here in the FINHOLM Market, who wants to take that question as to how this market originated?
Should be Monty or Jack.
Go ahead, Jack.
Well, as I recall being told, my Uncle John, Monty's father-in-law, moved down here in the 30s from Olalla and went to work for the fellow who owned this place. In fact, it might have been across the street at that time. And then ultimately bought it from him. And shortly after he bought it from him, he encouraged my father, Ed, to come down to Gig Harbor and go to work for him and with him in the store, ultimately leading to a lovely partnership that lasted from the middle 30s till 1990 or so, I suppose.
And with a little extra explanation, this is the FINHOLM district. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the FINHOLM family did own a majority of the real estate down here. Who wants to dive into that? Monty?
Yes, somewhat. They own the waterfront across the street, which now belongs to Buckholes and also to Teddy and I. He owned this property as well as all the way down to the corner of Peacock, and developed it over time, but then sold it off as people wanted it, really. I mean, I think he sold the Buckholes property for $500 for all that waterfront, which is probably 400 feet of waterfront. So it was a different day, of course. But, then he sold the corner lot to his son, Ron, who later sold it to whomever the successor in title was. And then the Shoreline bought the parking lot area, with the exception of one, which Teddy and I own now as a result of buying it from her brother, or at least his interest. And then, of course, the store was developed slowly. Originally, it was actually in a small building that now is covered by the facade of this building. And next door was the post office. And then beyond that was a park area that had a bandstand.
Big bandstand where all the politicians would come to speak.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Right. And then he developed this building, made it larger, and it developed a frozen food locker in the back, which was quite in demand until everybody had freezers.
Okay.
And then it was no longer in demand. So that's kind of the history of the down here.
Okay.
But Jack's family developed the properties above
Great.
on Franklin Street.
If you look at those lots above Franklin at the top of the view climb, my dad had the corner lot that we grew up on, and he sold the lots next to him, all the way down the alley and above the alley, all the way down for, I recall hearing, $150 a piece during the times that we were having more and more children, so he needed that $150 every few years to sort of support another kid in the family.
You brought up an interesting point that I wanted to talk about, the view climb, which is the stairs right over off to the side of the market here. Who wants to dive in as to when and how that came about?
Roger, you had a lot to do with that.
I'm not sure exactly when it came about. I was a member of the Lions Club and participated in a number of different events that we had there to raise funds and to make more people aware of what was there.
Mm-hmm.
And we have pictures of Uncle John and your dad at the bottom of the view climb. They were pretty instrumental guys in getting that off the ground
Yeah.
and going. And then our Lions Club was very active in promoting that, getting people involved in it,
Yeah.
getting each step with the correct name and the correct spelling.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So next time you're taking a jog on that view climb, be sure to take a look at some of those names, because that is a very historical part of Gig Harbor and the FINHOLM district.
The fun thing about the view climb, of course, is it was on the trail.
Okay.
And every kid who went to school at what became Goodman, but prior to that was Gig Harbor High School. My mother actually went to Gig Harbor High School, as did your mother-in-law.
It was Lincoln High School.
I think it was called Gig Harbor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One of the newbies, sorry.
The original. Anyway, the kids would all come down that street and then go down the trail to come down here. And the trail was very comfortable for the longest time until Mont's father-in-law, Uncle John, decided to expand the parking lot over here. And when the parking lot got expanded, they dug into the hillside. And so now the trail became extraordinarily steep.
Yes.
And my father walked up and down that trail every day to go to work. But after it became so steep, it was, you had to be a teenager to be able to get up and down it. And I think the Lions Club, it became city property. It probably always had been city property. It was an easement. But the Lions Club decided to do something to sort of improve it. But it became kind of a fun conversation, because for the first time, the old guys could go up and down where the trail had been, because after the parking lot was built, they just couldn't do it. It was like climbing a cliff.
Well, I have a question, and this is for each of you, is what is your favorite part about living in Gig Harbor? As we all know, it is a very special small town with a big town vibe, as I always like to say. And it has changed a lot over the last 50, 60 so years. And I just want to know what each of your favorite things is about living here in Gig Harbor. Mike, let's start with you.
It's just a quaintness and the family, small town, even though it's much bigger now, is there. And that's the end of my story
Great, thank
for
you.
now. You're
How
welcome.
about you, Roger?
I grew up in Paulsbo
Okay.
and north of here, and of course I thought everything about Paulsbo was really great. And slowly but surely I started to see more and more of the town and how it was kind of unique. And also the state patrolman became a good friend of ours out on the highway, thank God.
So then Roger actually moved here, back here later in life, and raised his family here as well, which I think is significant. I grew up here, went to local schools, went to the University of Washington, went in the Army, took a job, lived all over the world. And in the late 80s, when my wife and I and our kids were in a position to relocate, my wife was from Chicago. we were living in Southern California and just simply didn't like living there. I was open to moving anywhere. My wife was absolutely adamant about moving to Gig Harbor, and I didn't quite understand it, to be honest with you. But we moved back here and bought a home and finished raising our children here in 1988, I think. After a couple of years, I began to really understand why. The kids, of course, were immediately accepted in the schools, and the schools were great, and the community was great. And we really integrated ourselves with the community and have never looked back. It was the best decision I think we ever made, was to come back here. So,
How about you, Monty?
Yeah, well, the place is beautiful. Obviously, it's an amazing creation of God's. I got to know, as a result of practicing law out here, the community, and which consisted primarily of Slavonians and Scandinavians. And Slavonians lived on one side of town, the Scandinavians lived on the other side of town, yet they were all unified. They were friends, worked together, helped each other. I loved that about this community, and they drank together.
Yep.
It was all good times and helping each other. So it's been a wonderful place to be and to live, and I can't imagine any place being better, frankly, as a home base.
Well, I think that one thing we hear in common from talking to each of these gentlemen, I know each of your wives, I know each of your children, and when it comes to living in Gig Harbor, family is huge. Family is everything. Each of these gentlemen went away, came back. I personally went away, came back. It's the family element. It is the small town with the big town vibe that really makes Gig Harbor set apart. And coming right back down here to the FINHOLM district is just special, where it all started.
cheers.
Well, that was fun. What an honor to sit down with the FINHOLM boys and talk about their family history right here in the FINHOLM district. There were a couple behind the scenes stories that didn't quite make it to this footage that we wanted to share. My favorite was just down the street from us. You will all know it as a white painted building with that beautiful floral mural on it. That John FINHOLM actually lived there, and he self-appointed himself as the fire marshal and personally purchased a fire truck.
And phone calls would actually come into the meat market. They'd have to sprint up the road from the meat market to the fire station, hop in the truck, and go put out fires.
Pretty cool. I like the story about the grocery store rivalry that took place when the Uddenberg family moved from Port Orchard and opened up the Uddenberg Market at Thriftway. It was then became a Thriftway. Now it's our 7 C's.
Yep.
So the FINHOLM boys, FINHOLM Market, Uddenberg Market, a bit of a small town grocery store rivalry.
Love it.
Stories to go on that
Small
one,
town
too.
stories.
Yeah.
If you guys have any other stories that you want us to cover, information about small neighborhoods or just general history of the harbor,
Small businesses.
Yeah.
I love covering small businesses.
Small businesses, just go to key2c.com and send us your request. We'd be happy to cover it.
Let us know.
Thank you. Well, that was sure fun. What an honor to meet and interview with the
All right, there we go.
There's hair on it.
Is there?
Yeah.
Gross. All right, that's good. Okay, we are good to go. Ready when you are.
All right, perfect. Well, that was fun. Nope. Well, that was fun.
I should probably chime in on that a little bit if I can.
Yeah, okay.
Because I was just like,
And CJ is also here.
yeah, I'm here too. But yeah, that's a good story.
Just don't spill my coffee there, CJ. Sorry.
You're the only one that actually has anything in your cup. Because it obviously is like empty. We're just like,
Go down to the meat market.
Ready?
Oh, sorry. Yes, when you're ready.
Just go. Whenever. And we want to show you a little bit more about that.
And this is part 1, the FINHOLM district. That's all I
Can
have.
I take his